What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We were wrong. This is actually our final interview at Brooklyn Bazaar, and where anything's on a great note. We are here with Fabio of Varaha. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here. As I told you before we started rolling, A Passage for Lost Years, one of my personal favorites to come out this year. Do you just want to talk about how the making of this record was and the recording and all that?
Oh, it's a complicated making because after we signed with Prosthetic, we kind of like decided to put all the cards on the table, and I told my bandmates that I had this crazy idea to put together an orchestra for the record. So I wanted the record to be a dance between the metal and the soundtrack music, and I wanted all of it to be very fluent and all of it to work together. And because of that, it became a very complicated process because we used 3 different studios. We used one studio for the orchestra, and then some of the special guests. We have Chuck Bontraga from the Hamilton American musical doing doing the lead violin. I just wanted give him a separate room, and also we decided to record all the different elements of the orchestra in different groups. So we recorded the strings and the brass and the winds and such, so that Adam Stilson, which is ultimately a co-producer, would be able to put his touch and thoroughly mix all different elements in the orchestra as well in the metal and make everything kind of fit into place. So everything has to work in unison in many ways, and that's as far as the process. I love talking about that stuff. In regards to the content, I don't know. I mean, it's a very important record for all of us, for myself especially, and I don't know. It's It's kind of hard for me to talk about how do I want to define the meaning behind it, because like every painting out there, every form of art, or every film, it really comes down to the person, what's happening in the person's life. And when you see something, if you have experienced something similar, or if you can relate, it's all about relating and finding a connection. You will find your own meaning, and that's why I don't like to talk about what each song specifically talks about, or talk about the narrative to a point where it becomes almost didactic.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was curious about is because I felt like every song almost had its own vibe. Like a song like Climax in Exile, for example, is different from a song like My World and Yours, for example. So was there many different emotions or many different elements or many different sources of inspiration for writing this record?
I definitely treat it as a screenplay. So Climax in Exile, obviously, is going to be like the climax. Actually, not the climax. I apologize. It's going to be the point of no return in the story when something happens. Can I swear? So in your life, shit hits the fan, and you have to do something. So throughout the record, there's all these moments where, okay, imagine writing a feature film screenplay. The Severance is inciting incident when something happens and the story moves forwards. Climax in Exile is the point of no return. When I'm not getting too much detail. That I'm just not talking about the story behind it. There's actually ultimately a story behind the whole record, but Irreparable is the denouement of the story. So there's definitely a storyline that connects all the songs, but I wanted each song to be their own story within their own chapter and talk about something different. So they are connected as a whole, but purposely each song represents a defining moment within the whole storyline.
Well, what's unique is because I love how the music, each song really evolves. It's not there's too much repetition incorporated. I thought when I first heard Climax in Exile and those harmonies lead you in, but then when it gets at its heavier part, it almost has a bit of an optimistic turn to it. At least that's what I got out of it. So is there a preconceived idea in how you want a song to be, or is there a lot of improvising involved?
No, there's probably very little improvisation involved. Everything is very, very thoroughly planned. And it gets even more complicated because, let's say myself or Joe Hollis, the other guitar player, have a specific concept, an idea, which could start from the song of the title itself. And based on that, we create a narrative, a storyline. So everything has to have some kind of meaning. Everything has to, this happened and then what? And I'm so sorry if I'm mumbling. Well, we're on tour right now, so we just got here in New York after a 9-hour drive. So please bear with me. Um, there's a specific word I'm looking for. I can't find it right now. Really. Everything is a decisive moment. So, like repetition can, if it's meaningful, repetition has its place.
Yeah.
But in development, it's important to, like we talked about dance, go back and forth between heaviness and harmony, heaviness and repetition, so that everything is dynamic and everything has purpose. That's the word I was looking for. Purpose. Everything has to have purpose within the record and within each song. Every riff needs to have its own purpose to lead us to the next point of the story.
Interesting. Do you think of the meaning before you have music, or do you like need music in order to come up with lyrics and a subject matter and a story behind it, or does the story determine the music itself?
Half and half, actually, because again, Varaha is not a solo project. We are four very different individuals, and every member has their own voice. So, of course, if I'm writing a song, I have a very specific idea that I want to follow, and everything will be planned out accordingly. But then let's say Joel comes up with a great idea. He comes up with a theme, and we start analyzing the theme, dissecting it, and say, okay, how can we add to it or remove from it, and how do we move from here? And then sometimes afterwards, I'll look at this riff or at this sequence of music, and I step back and I would imagine, okay, if this music was the score of a film, what would happen within the story? So sometimes I have the idea before I write the music, and sometimes I'll listen to something and I said, okay, what does this represent? Where are we in the story? What is this riff itself trying to say?
Interesting. One thing I was curious about is I know that you want to leave this story and this concept kind of like open to interpretation and allow people. What I was curious though is, were you looking inward for the story? Was this a story that you developed on your own, or do you have to like look for inspiration? Do you have to like go outside, think outside the box a little bit in order for a story to come?
Oh, I'm not sure. Half and half, maybe? I believe that I always try not to be autobiographical in my music. The music is a representation of my experiences and how I see the world, but a lot of times it does not talk about me. So it's weird. I'm telling a story, somebody else's story, and so sometimes when in the lyrics, when you hear the word "you," is that you somebody else? Are you talking at somebody else, or is that you a mirror? Are you talking inwards? So it really goes back and forth, and I try to represent a storyline that is not generic, but I just said it earlier, it's not autobiographical. It is not my story. In order for people to relate, the message has to be somewhat more open, so that if I don't want to pinpoint my personal experience, because that will limit other people looking in, like yourself, reading those lyrics or immersing yourself with the music. You want to be able to find something small within your own story that is not identical to mine, where you can relate to the music itself.
Well, as you're developing this, you mentioned this is not like a personal meaning. This is not like an autobiography. But as you were developing this art and bringing this story into a sonic experience, did you at all develop your own personal connection with it?
Oh, of course, absolutely. The denouement, irreparable, the final track, definitely, and the title track, which is very important for me, A Passage for Those Years as well. And then like I said, yes and no, because you bring yourself, you find a real connection, but then, like we said earlier, because Varaha is not a solo project, there's three other minds that bring their opinion, then you have this idea that maybe actually in the end starts off as an autobiographical, personal, subjective opinion, but then it's enriched and embellished by the rest of the bandmates. if this makes sense
Yeah,
at all.
no, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. When it comes to playing your material live, do you like, is it a different energy than when you're playing in songwriting mode, or is there maybe a usual method of behind the madness that applies to songwriting and playing?
Uh, in the end, you know what? We are a metal band, and I think that when we play live, we kick up the gears a little bit. We even play the songs that are like a couple BPMs a little faster. In the end, we want to have a different kind of experience. I think the record is a very long record. It's meant to be listened to at home, maybe during a rainy day. And on the other hand, when you see us live, we want to bring the fire. We want to bring a more immersive, energetic experience. So there's two very different sides of Varaha. The at-home, chill orchestra, nostalgic element, but then it's a very powerful live element as well. So we make a very big distinction between the two. Eventually, don't get me wrong, if I may add to it, of course, eventually we would love to bring the orchestra, even partial orchestra, on stage with us one day, maybe for a one-time special occasion. But for now, I think that when we play live, we want to have a stronger energy and a stronger emotional response, an immediate, faster response from the audience.
Here's the most difficult question.
Oh, no.
How do you know when a song is done?
It's a tough one because sometimes you think the song is done, like we said earlier, and then the other bandmates, and this happened with a couple songs from the record that I probably would have cut short, and I said no, let's just keep this going. Let's expand on this idea. But sometimes, music is a form of art, but in the end, music is also a product. Sometimes you have to have a deadline. Sometimes, in the end, the work has to get done. Just like this interview, I'm sorry, I'm so tired, but you know what? Hey, sometimes you just need to do it and get it done, and that's what I want to tell a lot of bands out there that may feel uncertain about their music, and I've been there myself many times. I'm still am. Sometimes in the end, you just have to have that hard deadline and just like, okay, you know what, we're gonna be done with this record now, and this motivational deadline ultimately, kind of pushes you to put all the pieces of the puzzle together to the point where not yourself, but the whole band can say in unison, hey, you know what? That's it. We're good, and we got this.
That was actually very beautiful. I think you answered that better than any artist I interviewed.
Thank
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Is there just anything else with Varaha you would like to promote in terms of upcoming tours or new music, if you're allowed to say?
No, I'm not able to say anything right now. We are right now we're doing a quick East Coast run. Our record came out in April, so we felt like we want to showcase our music one more time before the end of the year, and we're grateful to be here in Brooklyn. We're actually apparently will be the last metal show at Brooklyn Bazaar, and this is it's a little bittersweet, I must say. But and then tomorrow will be Pittsburgh, and after that we have a couple ideas, but I don't really feel. I don't feel I'll talk about it yet.
Exactly. Yeah, you probably have like a tour. Knowing this, you probably have like a tour scheduled for like 2022 at this point. But thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody. We are here with Fabio of Varaha, A Passage for Lost Years. Pick that up. You will not regret it. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.